we demand the questioning, the wrestling, the challenging of assumed tenets. We don't have doctrine or dogma.
And people say, well, wait a minute, I want to be a good person, I believe I am a good person, but the church teaches that this thing is not in line with the teaching of the church, or in line with what Jesus intended, for example. And so I think that the questioning and the dialogue is very important.
So what's interesting is that Judaism today doesn't spend very much time at all talking about or thinking about heaven or hell. Though the Christian traditions took our notion of a dark place where evil people go after death, and Christianity developed that into a full-natured scheme, especially with the help of Dante and the fear of the Middle Ages Catholicism. The Jewish notion of heaven and hell is largely left to the realm of ideas that we just don't know about. So, in fact, I often say, I can use it as a perfect example. In my library, if this were representative of all of Jewish thought, you would have one huge section that's all about Shabbat, and another huge section that's all about history, and a big piece over here about how to eat, and a big piece over there about how to observe holidays and life cycle events, and each piece, and there'd be one little book up in the top corner about the afterlife. Mm-hmm. It's just something that we have decided to leave to that realm of ideas that we don't have access to.
It all has to do with what you've done in this life, and there are plenty of stories of people who on their deathbed turn the other way. And the reality is, we don't know sometimes what happens between a person and God. It's between the person and God. And so one of the four last things in our teachings are heaven, hell, purgatory, and judgment. So when it comes to judgment, everyone we believe is judged. And that's at the moment where, the Lord decides where you're going to go. Where you're going to go. So purgatory for us, maybe it's helpful to talk about that. Purgatory for us, if you're in purgatory, you're going to heaven. Mm-hmm. It's a big waiting area. Yeah. And so some people don't know that it could go either way. No. If you're in purgatory, you're going to go to heaven, and it's just a sort of a timing thing. We don't get involved in the judgment part, and so we sometimes people ask us, who do you think's in hell? I never answer that question. Mm-hmm.
So there is most certainly, Jewishly, the assumption that at any moment we can change. Yeah. That is upheld as a central concept. The free will that we're given permits for a person, no matter how far down into the depths they have slid, to reset their direction. Absolutely. In fact, we have Yom Kippur every year, which is this Day of Atonement, a time at which we're supposed to recommit to a new path for next year. But I've never been asked the question, nor have I ever considered whether that can happen after death. If you have been bad enough that you get sent to Sheol, and the assumption is that that's only reserved for the worst offenders. There were lots and lots and lots of really bad actors in the Bible, and almost none of them were associated with Sheol. So, we're talking about the Hitlers of the world. So if Hitler gets down to hell and turns a new leaf over, can he reverse the judgment? That's a good question. I actually don't have any Jewish response on that.